The Sessions. So Mark O'Brien, poet and writer, suffered from polio as a child. As an adult, we see him, working with an iron lung, and he's in his middle age, and he understands that his life expectancy is not huge, and he says to his priest, he says, I want to have sex. I want to lose my virginity, and I don't know how I go about this. And he starts talking to his priest about the possibilities of how this may happen. And his priest, at first, is sort of slightly taken aback, but actually is exactly the kind of advisor that you'd want to have. And it turns out that there is such a thing as sexual surrogacy, and so he arranges to meet sexual surrogate, played by Helen Hunt, who will help him achieve his goal. Here's a clip.
So,
your money's on the desk over there.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
That was the wrong way to start off.
It really was. Shall we start again?
Please, you start.
Although the aim is for us to have sex, I'm not a prostitute. You don't have to pay me up front. I have nothing against prostitutes, but there's a difference. We can talk about that later.
I'm sorry.
The other thing is, there's a limit to the number of sessions we can have. Did Laura mention that when you saw her?
I'm sorry. I don't remember.
The limit is 6, but that gives us plenty of opportunity to explore.
And the reason the limit is 6 is because essentially what they're attempting to do is to solve a physical problem as opposed to get into the murky waters of emotional involvement. But of course, what happens is that emotional involvement does come into play, and that's sort of at the heart of the drama. And here's the things to say about this. Firstly, on a performance level, it's really, really, really impressive. As I said, Macy plays this character who is, the priest, but understands the earthly, and God moves in a mysterious way, and he does that in a way which isn't caricatured. As O'Brien, we have John Hawkes, who was so brilliant in Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene. The order of those names I always get wrong, and played the sort of the cult leader in that, and does a brilliant job in this. And Helen Hunt, equally a very raw, open, and in a very literal sense, naked performance. In fact, one of my very few reservations about the film is that it has an inequality in terms of its physical revelations, the men and the women. And I didn't understand that at all. It seemed to make no sense to me, since it's being so frank about everything else. It seemed peculiar that it was coyer with its male nudity than it was with its female nudity. I know this is a historical thing.
I was going to say, it's a long tradition.
It is a long tradition. It's a long tradition which bothers me, and it was a shame because within the context of the film, it seemed jarringly out of place. And the reason it seemed jarringly out of place is that the movie has such a candid attitude towards sex, towards its characters, towards where they are in their life, towards the issues of the illnesses that it's addressing, towards the issues of the personal growth that it's addressing. It does all these in a way which is so frank and so candid and so charmingly disarming that it was odd for it to have had that particular little foible, which seemed to me to be much more in line with mainstream cinema. I mean, for me, it comes from a line of films which dates back to movies I really like The Water Dance, for example. It is a character piece. It is a character piece about what it means to want to be physically fulfilled, what it means to find love in a situation in which you think you can't find love. I mean, from the outside, it may look like one of those movies in which, the triumph of the human spirit, but it's so much more than that. It is a movie which is properly frank and open and honest about human relationships, about the difficulties of human relationships, about the divide between, the soul and the body, and sometimes the union of the soul and the body. And it does something. It is all these things in a way which I wish it wasn't called The Sessions, which makes it sound like the most boring film on earth. And it's not a title which does it any favors, frankly. But it's beautifully played, excellently well pitched, and I thought addressed its subject matter in a way which is open for all audiences. I mean, obviously, 15 and upwards audiences probably, but which is so refreshingly frank and genuine and honest about its subject matter that it makes you think, gosh, when you see that sort of film, you think it is amazing how repressed and uptight and not frank most other movies are. It's not something that everyone's going to flock to see, partly, I think, because it's called The Sessions. It's a shame. Maybe they should call it John Carter of Mars.